Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to CCI's webinar on Channel ROI. I'm Peter Hornberger, and I'm joined today by Stephen Kellum, our SVP of Sales and Marketing.
Good morning, everybody.
And as we get started, I wanted to give you a glance at our agenda today. We're going to start by setting the table and talking about some of the inputs that led us to this discussion. We'll talk a little bit about industry trends and what's going on in the market. And then we'll get to the heart of the presentation today. That's closing the loop. That's what we're going to call the partner investment life cycle. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with some conclusions and answer any questions you have. Please, if you do have questions, we're more than happy to get to those at the end. So take some time to fill out your questions in the chat box, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. So for setting the table, we really wanted to go through the three traditional main ROI challenges that we see when it comes to the channel. And the first two really surround data. That starts with capturing and sharing data. How do you collect data? How do you share it with your partners? And then what do you do with that data is the next step. How do you leverage that data? And then lastly, there is the market that plays into this as well. What are the external forces that affect the ultimate ROI of your channel programs? Stephen, you want to take us through these?
Sure, Peter. You know, the first two, the capturing and sharing data and the leveraging data, it's really where there's been the most progress. Traditionally, it was very hard to get the data from so many different places, from LMSs, from POSs, CRMs, ERPs, and partners. It makes things like scorecarding really hard. But what we've seen today, particularly with integrations and organizations working together, it's really been a vast improvement on that side. And then the leveraging the data. You know, we're having so many conversations with our partners and our vendors on where they want to see that data lie, and so they can look at how they want to use it, right? And it really has become very much something that's in progress and really an evolutionary stage on that. So lots of progress on the data side. The market side, well, there's always going to be external forces. There's not a lot we can do about new product releases, pricing adjustments, competitive changes in the landscape. Those are all pieces we just had to deal with. Okay. And also the industry trends. The industry trends are a real big piece of why we're having this discussion today on ROI, both ROI from the lift side and ROI from the marketing side. What we're seeing in the market is a relatively slow growth market, but high expectations from so many of the vendors for growth in their areas. And the way to do that is they're going to have to take market share. And while they're trying to take this market share, they're also in the middle of a rapidly changing tech landscape between bundling of services and the integration of partners, where a solution provider and an MSP maybe were separate now, but now they're all together. It really has caused a lot of changes on the landscape. So in the middle of all this need to grow and an ever-changing landscape, now we're really seeing a pressure on the marketing departments to deliver ROI. And a real key is today that marketing departments are expected to deliver ROI on things that have traditionally been a challenge, like MDF or BDF, business development funds.
So then here's the core of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to show you where we're headed, how we close the loop, and show you what we're calling the partner investment life cycle. We've done a lot of research leading up to these slides and solutions. We've talked to clients and prospects and our partners. Most of those companies across Fortune 100 and Fortune 1000 companies, and in a number of different spaces, specifically high level in the high tech areas, telcos, green tech, and then across a number of different sub-verticals beyond that. Stephen's going to take us through our first slide here, which is the partner investment life cycle.
Thanks, Peter. I mean, this was really an aha moment for us several months ago. We've been having so many conversations about these individual pieces once again, with prospects, with our existing clients. And about 6 months ago, we sort of said, wow, if we could, how do we string these together? There seems to be a connect the dots direction that we're headed in here. And we created this partner investment life cycle. And as we go through this today, we're going to start with the partner scorecarding and benchmarking. It's one of the most interesting conversations that we've had with folks over the past 6 months or so. In particular, it's really starting to heat up. We'll go through the business planning, the joint marketing. We're going to talk about the challenges around fund allocation and really getting the best out of what the partners are creating for plans. We're going to go into the marketing campaign execution side, talk a lot about through partner marketing, driving this into deal registration, talk about the ability to collect sales data and how to scrub it, look at the systems of record, how important they're becoming for visibility and usage of the data. And then we're going to end up really with the final piece is the ROI measurement. And we're going to look at it in two different ways, both from a historical context, how can we look at what we've done and how successful we've been, which is typically what everyone has looked at. But I think a real interesting side that's come out of this is how do we create better predictive analytics? And we've got some really nice ideas on that, and really looking forward to a lot of feedback on that piece.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is take you step by step through the loop, starting first off with partner scorecarding and benchmarking. And this is really the first step where you start to decide who are the partners that, based on historical information and inputs that I think are worth investing in and taking the next step with. And I do want to point out as we go through each of these sections, we've got arrows on these first slides here to show you what the different inputs are. That feed into each one of these specific sections. And so you can see here with partner scorecarding, everything is feeding into that. You're pulling data, you're pulling inputs from all the different sections on this loop to feed into partner scorecarding.
Yeah, Peter, partner scorecarding absolutely is a key to this. It's a goal for so many organizations in 2014. And realistically, I would say 90% of who we talk to, folks are doing scorecarding now. And everybody's doing it manually. One of the more interesting conversations we've had as of late is so many people talking to us about how do we take scorecarding and make a better process out of it? How do we make it more automated? So as we look at this, matrix here, and this was courtesy of PartnerPath. We did a webinar several months ago that was really a nice webinar that talked about scorecarding and talked about what people are doing now and perhaps what they could be doing in the future to do it even better. And what we found out as you look at the XY axis here is on the X-axis you've got less powerful and more powerful. On the Y-axis you've got the easy to get and the harder to get. And what we hear over and over again, and I don't think this is any surprise to anyone, is total sales revenue, technology expertise, operational efficiencies, all of those categories and the data that flows up underneath them. Well, those are what people are doing because those are the most easy to get categories, and in most cases we can get those without having to leave the confines of our organization. What's really getting interesting out there and the changes that we're seeing is more organizations really looking to get much deeper into the end user satisfaction, business planning, business modeling, mind share, company health, and all of these more in-depth yet more powerful categories are much more involved. It really is talking about, or really drives getting out and meeting with partners.
So the next step in the loop is joint business planning. So after you've scorecarded, you've taken some measurements, you've looked at your partners from a data standpoint, and you're starting to get an idea of which are the ones that you see as your potential growth partners that you want to work with. You're going to move into joint business planning. And this is where you start to get out of your cube, you meet with your partners, and you start to align and set win-win strategies and goals for mutual benefit across you and your partner.
We have another matrix here, and this is also courtesy of PartnerPath, Diane Krakora. And this is really the partner engagement flow. And this is going to be a key to understanding who your partners are and really what you have to work with. And everybody has limited resources. And you want to make sure that you're investing those resources in the right place. And that really is becoming incredibly important as we're seeing one of the industry trends is a lot of move from co-op to MDF. And it may not be all of a move from co-op to MDF, but definitely seeing a lot of folks going from maybe 70% co-op, 30% MDF to 50-50. And the goal is maybe to even go to 70-30. And it goes back to the trend we were talking about earlier about having to take market share and having to incent partners to grow. And most of that is done with MDF/BDF, business development funds, versus the co-op. So to do that really well, we really need to make sure that we're focusing on the right partners. And joint business planning, it's just the key. Once you're doing all that scorecarding and figuring out what they look like, then getting out and meeting with those partners, confirming who they are, what their capabilities are, and then really understanding there from that business planning what to do with your top performers, what to do with the mature partnerships, and the at-risk folks as well. And in particular, the section that has so many dots in it, the growth side, and I think that's where a key for MDF and BDF is, who are those partners that are growth partners that are going to be your top performers of the future. And business planning is just a great way to manage that.
And then once you finish business planning, we're going to move into joint marketing planning. And this is where you've decided with your partners that you're going to work together. You've defined goals. You've set strategies. Now you need the marketing that's going to drive leads. It's going to drive business, ultimately meeting your goals in the long run.
Yeah, Peter, this is all about a face-to-face. This is all about aligning your go-to-market strategies so that the vendor's go-to-market strategy and the partner's go-to-market strategy are all in alignment. And this very much is the most creative side, the most dynamic side of the business planning. It obviously rolls up under a joint business planning. But this is really sitting down and planning with the partner how to get the most out of the funds that you have, whether it's MDF funds or whatever funds that they're using, incentives, anything that's there. How do we get the most out of it? It really needs to be collaborative, and it also very much needs to be easy. The feedback we get over and over again is, I do this with my partners, but I don't have an automated system, and it's kind of challenging, in particular in follow-up with them, to stay in touch and to stay aligned with them. So if it's challenging to do that, it's obviously going to be challenging to measure as well. So automation can definitely help here, but the three key pieces are: you need to make it collaborative, you need to make it easy, and you need to make it measurable.
Which brings us to the next section, which is really closely tied in the direct follow, and that being MDF allocation and distribution. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Up to this point, you've been setting strategies and aligning goals and so forth, but at this point, you're actually putting dollars on the table and you're beginning to invest. And this is where we start to assume some risk as we do this. Now, this is where I want to point out that this is a loop. We started with partner scorecarding, but in reality, this is a closed loop, and each one of these steps feeds into the next one. And the longer that you work within this process, pulling data from all of these steps, and specifically the next few steps we're going to move through, the smarter you're going to get about how much money you need to invest in this stage and where to invest those dollars. And so remember that the more and more that you work within the context of this loop, the better you can expect returns from the investments that you put down in this stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point, Peter. When you look at the MDF, if you looked at that loop, if you can take it back for a second, if you look at that loop, as you go through this, you've got partner scorecarding, benchmarking, where everybody does some piece of that. Everybody does MDF. If you're doing MDF, everybody does fund allocation, right? Everybody does some sort of distribution. What we found is a lot of people are skipping the joint business planning or perhaps the joint marketing planning, or as they're going through those, they're not really aligning their go-to-market strategies with the partners. I'll give you guys a great example. We were working with one of our clients recently, and this was their challenge. They got their funding for MDF/BDF 2 weeks into every quarter. And historically, that's the way that they had gotten their funding. That was not going to change. What they had done, though, that the problem that caused was they took that funding 2 weeks into the quarter. Then they reached out to their partners and said, you have 24 hours now to turn around a plan and get that to me so that we can allocate these funds and we can try to create some successful game plans here. So every single quarter, everybody in the organization was stressed out. They knew this was coming, right? But they got their funds 2 weeks in. The partners knew it was coming. They're stressed out. But nobody was changing anything. And the conversations we had with them was, hey, what if? What if you had an automated process where your partners could show you their plans 30 days ahead of time, and they were lined up and vetted, and you had a really nice tool, a method of communication where you could look at those plans, and you could go back and forth with the partner, and you could really be prepared. Dramatically decrease the stress level on both sides. And when those funds were finally released 2 weeks into the quarter, they're able to say, hey, all right, we've got $1 million of plans that have been vetted here. We know what the top 10 plans are. We know who's going to have, say, maybe a 90% success probability, who's 75, who's 50. We can really, really look at this very, very well and very, very detailed. So this is, once again, Peter, talk about how we actually solve problems this way as we work through this, circle.
And then that brings us to the next step, which is the actual execution. So you've done your joint marketing planning. You've decided what you were going to do together. You've invested your dollars and given the partner the ability to actually execute those campaigns. And then we get to the execution. And this is traditionally where the wheels have just fallen off in these kinds of programs, because it is difficult to measure partners' performance. You have to go off of what they say historically, and that is not always information that's accurate. But there's been a lot of things that we've seen change in the marketplace recently that we think have evolved the process and give a lot more insight into what's actually happening at this phase in the loop.
Yeah, this is one of the more exciting pieces. It truly has been something that has grown tremendously over the past couple of years. Internally here we call it the rise of the TPMAs, the rise of the through partner marketing agencies. But realistically, for several years now, we have seen an increase in discussions and use of through partner marketing. And this isn't new to any of you out there, in that everybody's tried for partner marketing, and it's still a piece of what's done. There are folks out there who relied on partners to do marketing, and that is definitely a challenge with so many of the partners out there. The through partner marketing piece, to me, has just seemed to really accelerate over the past couple of years. And I'm not so sure whether it's because of the rise of the through partner marketing agencies and being able to fulfill that need, or the opposite of that, whether the through partner marketing agencies came along and just kind of solved the problem. But either way, we're seeing the two combined for really, really great success. And we're seeing an awful lot of these through partner marketing agencies, these dedicated groups, these dedicated organizations that are really handling those executions that you want the partners to do, and such upside to it, right? Now you've got an easy methodology for partners to engage, and one of the biggest things now, you have professional, really well done campaigns that don't have to pull your resources into that as the vendor, and then you're getting the benefit of once again, a professional program that really is getting a closed loop ROI on the results of all those activities. Okay. So a couple of things about the TPMAs and about these through partner marketing campaigns. They've been incredibly successful. However, some of the things that we have looked at as far as learnings from using these programs is you really have to pay attention to the details. One of the things, the challenges that we've seen, actually, Peter, if you want to go back to the last slide for just a second. Okay, I'm going to talk about the last two pieces for just a little bit more. The slight buyer beware piece and the behavior modification side, and they tie really well together. One of the things that we've seen is partners don't always come to where you want them to go, or go where you want them to go, just because you lay it out there. And I think logically, if any of you think about it, that makes a lot of sense, right? They're really busy. They've got a lot of vendors they work with. In many cases, we need to work a little bit to get them where we want to go. So in many cases, we've seen these really elegant, well done, really well thought out through partner marketing campaigns by the TPMAs laid out there. And we're seeing good success. We're seeing partners come in. We're seeing them engage. We're seeing it do what it needs to do. However, we've definitely seen an acceleration in that engagement and that success when we have used some behavior modification. And when I say behavior modification, I'm speaking of using points-based incentives to drive the partners to do what we need them to do. And as simple as just driving them to go into the portal. In most cases, if you can just get that partner to the portal and they can see how easy it is to run these programs, you're going to see a big lift. There's no question about it. But we've also seen organizations reward not just for getting into the portal, but reward for engaging then in the process, reward for making that first appointment, reward for putting that deal into deal registration, walking through and working through the metrics that you as the vendor need the partner to do. We've seen a lot of success. As a matter of fact, I know there'll be several case studies coming out over the next 6 to 9 months about this, and how you've been able to look at taking a 30 or 35% engagement level up to 50, 60% engagement levels. And that's just a huge upside. And it's using the same through partner marketing. It's just pushing the partners a little bit to do what we need them to do. So Peter, I think those are really key points. Here's some examples of some of the looks of what these marketing campaign executions look like. it really is a powerful, powerful tool. And I think we're going to see more and more of this done.
Absolutely. And so, moving from that, so you're doing your marketing campaign execution, you're beginning to get strong data on how the partners are being successful within this. The next step is tying that performance to actual sales. And that's where deal registration comes in. Now, I'm sure a lot of you, most vendors have been doing deal registration for a very long time. But traditionally, it's been somewhat siloed and sat somewhat outside of the other types of channel programs that you're running. And what we want to do with this loop is actually bring deal registration in and start to tie it to through partner marketing agencies so that you can begin to see what are the specific campaigns that are leading through to a sale. And deal registration is a great way to track that kind of information.
Yeah, Peter, I totally agree. And to me, this is really about, we could add a quality in, quality out sort of a way of looking at this, right? Because historically, we're depending on the partners to come in and drive all of their opportunities into deal registration. The TPMAs, as you say, are really helping quite a bit in creating validation on what's happening out there and improving the quality of what's going into the deal registration side. Because in reality, what we want out of deal registration, I think what we all want out of deal registration, is whatever metric that you're looking for, let's call it number of 20-plus probability opportunities. And obviously, that's going to be defined by your organization. But everything that we've talked about as we go through this loop is really helping you get there. Because once again, it needs to be not only are these deals moving into your deal registration, and Peter, as you said, getting rid of the silos and tying that into other systems, but it really needs to be high-quality opportunities that are going in there as well. And that's going to be pretty easy to measure for you on that end. It's like once we get it in the deal registration, I'm not saying we're home free on this, but boy, we've sure come a long, long way.
Absolutely, and that really leads right to the next step is beyond deal registration. So you're pulling in these leads into deal registration, you're tracking the success of opportunities, and then we get down to what's actually been sold, and that's where POS data comes in. Again, something that you're probably collecting in terms of what's being sold, but now we want to tie this in again as a part of this loop so that you can pull all of these data points together.
Yeah, POS data is an interesting piece. It just has so much relevancy in so many areas. The most simple way, obviously, is lift, right? And ideally, we'd love to see what are we spending on a campaign, and what are we gonna get out of it. And there's no question that there's been a lot of improvement in a couple of areas. One is being able to do things like tie a code for a campaign to all the way through to deal registration, so you can really understand that ROI and really try to tighten up that lift. The other side of it is being able to take that data, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more detail about where that data goes in a few slides down the road here. But a simple example is taking a joint planner, an automated joint planner. And historically, it's been something where the data that's been in there has been partner-driven. I need $20,000 to sell $400,000 in business, and the partner goes back and fills in the metrics from the activities, including the POS sometimes. Now we're talking about how do we get the POS data, or now having the ability to take that POS data and put that into something like a joint marketing planner. But I think the key to this, the final piece on this, is about the scrubbing and is making sure the data is accurate. And this kind of goes back to the quality in, quality out piece again. And we've definitely seen a rise in the number of organizations and the quality of organizations out there that do scrubbing for vendors. We've got several vendors that do that on their own, and it's a real challenge. But there are a couple of very good organizations out there right now that do the scrubbing and do it really well.
And then that really brings us, the last 5 steps have all been steps where we're collecting various data points. You start with joint marketing planning and MDF fund allocation to look at what are the dollars that you've passed to your partners. You move to campaign execution, what are the leads that are being generated, to deal registration, how many 20-plus opportunities are sitting out there, and then to POS data, what's actually been sold. And so the question is, okay, we have data from all these different sections. What do we do with that? And this goes back to one of the traditional ROI challenges we talked about, where you are collecting data and trying to share data, but where are you collecting that data? How are you sharing that data and communicating it out. And that's where we get into systems of records. This is the place where you need to decide, okay, where does all this data feed into so that I have one place that it's organized, that it's collected in, and that I can ultimately share it out to my partners and show them their performance over time.
Yeah, Peter, absolutely. And the question we've sort of posed, and maybe the 4 points as we've looked at data around, and those 4 points being capturing, access and sharing, organizing, and then how to use the data. And where that data sits, as you said, Peter, and what we do with it, I definitely see that as a huge growth area because of all the back-end system integrations that are now available. There's just no question that we're now at a place where we can look much better at what was historical success. And as we started a conversation earlier on, not only historical success from an ROI perspective, but then being able to take that and use that for predictive analytics. And that's really the culmination slide, right? And that's where we head next.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, kind of calling back to those challenges that we talked about in the beginning, collecting, sharing, organizing, that goes into the step previous. But the real desire by collecting and organizing your data is to begin to leverage that data. And that's where we get into this step where we look at how do we actually use that data to further enable ourselves and further enable our partners.
Yeah, we use the term winner, winner, chicken dinner for all you guys who have been to Vegas. It is the ultimate. It is the success of actually winning, right? And that's where we want to get on this ROI side. And the 2 places that we really see that we can win now very, very well, and we talked about this, is the historical side. And being able to look at lift from campaigns, be able to look at the sales pipeline, be able to look at the marketing metrics. And as we go through this loop and we're able now to take all these data points and just bring them all together, we're just seeing a much, much better success rate of being able to look at things historically. And then the flip side of that is on the predictive analytics. And that just sort of popped out to us, I would say, over the past 6 to 9 months as we've talked to our clients about, what is the risk that they're managing when someone, listen to some of their challenges, and that is managing the risk, right? What is the risk when someone requests $40,000 in BDF, and maybe they haven't successfully done anything before, or maybe they have. We just need to be able to see it all in one place, right? So that we can manage that risk, so that we can have improved forecasts, and so that we can actually create operational efficiencies as well. I'll give a perfect example here. We were with an organization fairly recently, and here's what they wanted. They wanted on a joint marketing planner to be able to hit a button and something pop up, a predictive analytics pop up that said, this request has a 75% probability of success. Oh, okay, well that's pretty interesting. How do we make something like that work? And it's very, very doable. Now with all the integrations and being able to pull LMS data, being able to pull POS data, being able to pull marketing data into one place, we can now look at, okay, what are all those scorecarding pieces that we've talked about and that you've gone into so much in-depth research now on, and how we pull them all together so that you literally can say, all right, I've got an administrator who's got a request, and they can hit a button, and they get a 75% probability of success that pops up. I think that's incredibly powerful for a lot of reasons. One is, once again, for forecasting success. It's great to have historical documentation, but we really want to know how we're going to move forward. And the other thing is, from an operational efficiency side, if you want to make it as easy as possible for your marketing folks to make an approval and be comfortable with it, and to be able to do it at a single approval level, you could set something up where they hit that button, it says 75% probability, it's a $20,000 request. Maybe you only need 1 level approval for that. Okay, you're freeing up your level 2 or maybe your level 3 at that. So there's just a lot of ways that you can build all this together for, once again, both the historical and the predictive side.
And so that's the partner investment lifecycle. That's our loop. We're going to walk through some conclusions. Steven's going to take us through these, and then we'll get to your questions. Again, just a reminder, if there are questions that we can answer for you today, please take some time and type them in, and we'll get to them in just a minute. Steven, you want to take us through these?
Sure. We wanted to keep this really simple, and I think we started with the joint business planning and the joint marketing, and really moving that into the light. And what we're seeing through the automated version of this, or even if it's not automated, we're seeing a lot of visibility across organizations, because marketing and sales, operations, look, they all have input into this. They all have executables in this. They all have a stake in this game, right? And the more it's in the light and more everyone can have some input into it, the more successful it's going to be. It's really tearing down those silos. And then successful channel systems today we're seeing are agile. They need to be able to move quickly. They need to adjust to the market. And a big piece of that is having these integrated systems so that you can plug and play and you can make quick decisions on where you need to go and what you need to do. And then finally, the dots, connecting all the dots. And this really is the circle, right? This is the cumulative effect of moving through the circle. And Peter, yeah, we'll wrap it up with the partner investment lifecycle again. And just a couple of points about this. As you move through this, once again, we understand not everybody does every piece of this right now, but I think this is something to look at. Can you plug a piece of this in? And as you move through it, how can you do it better? It's all designed as you move through this loop to get better and to get smarter and to do better business planning, to do better marketing planning, to have better metrics around the through partner marketing. Higher quality deal registration opportunities, cleaner data, better visibility across all your systems of record, and then being able to pull those all into one place or whatever places that you need so that you can as effectively as possible measure past success and then have the ability to have predictive analytics moving forward. So I think our biggest take on all of this is a journey around a cycle that you and your partners can do, and you can all get smarter about it.
Great, thanks, Stephen. So yeah, we'll take some time now to answer your questions. We are limited on time today, so we've included our email addresses up here. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have questions. Also, there's a lot of resources about the items we've talked about on this loop today at our website, www.channelmanagement.com. We've done webinars on scorecarding, business planning, joint marketing planning. We've done a lot of different things on those, and as well as having ebooks and data sheets available for various steps through the cycle as well. So if we don't get to your question, or if if something comes to mind later, please by all means shoot us an email or check out our website. We're happy to further these conversations. And with that, let's get into some questions. So first question is, what kind of automated tool would you suggest using to establish a joint marketing plan?
A joint marketing planner. And the joint marketing planner is really the ones that are automated today. CCI has a joint marketing planner. Historically are taking what so many folks have been doing for years, right, and taking champ plans and taking that marketing activity that's been going on for so long and that interaction between the vendor and the partner and putting it in an automated form. I think the real key and the real challenge, there have been two keys and two challenges in this as this idea has grown. One was to keep it simple, so any sort of behavioral change partners are somewhat resistant to. So keep it really simple so you can engage with the partner on a program like this. And then two, find a way to get a lot of that external data that we've been talking about, whether it's certifications or POS data, it's something from the CRM. Get that all into one place so that marketing automation tool is as powerful as possible.
Great. Next question. What level of marketing campaign utilization rates are you seeing when companies don't offer a TPM ad?
So what we're seeing is, so I'll work backwards on that, right? So what were the best TPMA results that we're seeing are in the 50-60% when they're engaging and using behavior modification and using points-based incentive programs alongside of them. Without those, many we've seen have been in the 25 to 40% range, and you can just take when you move underneath those, right? You're going down as you're moving away from the through partner marketing automation.
Great. Yeah, we've got another question here about what do the data scrubbing services charge? I think that's something that we're not data scrubbers ourselves, but we know a lot of those guys, so we'd be happy to get you introductions so that you can get pricing from them. Not something that we're really qualified to answer, I guess, at this point, but more than happy if you're interested in talking to POS scrubbers. We know a couple of the big players in the space, and happy to make those introductions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same thing goes for the TPMAs as well, right? There are a lot of folks out there who do just a really remarkable job today of building these portals and setting up these plans and creating very, very powerful engagement tool for the partners.
Next question, are CRM systems really able to be systems of record for a 360 partner view? Don't you need a PRM for this?
So yeah, yes. So that's a whole, there's a lot of information that we could also connect anybody here with on the PRM, the movement in PRM today. And there's several really good players out there who offer PRM systems. Obviously, Salesforce is a big piece of a lot of people's organizations from a CRM perspective. And tying all of those together to create that 360 view, yeah, you're going to need to drive something to a PRM side of things, which is why so many folks are adding a PRM system on top of their CRM.
Next question is connecting the dots of automated systems still a manual exercise, and how does CCI automate this so that it's not bespoke?
So let me got to think about this one for a second. It sort of depends. It depends on who the players are in the circle. As we move through this circle, there's quite a lot of TPMAs out there. There's a lot of individuals who do, as Peter said, who do scrubbing of data, and it depends on the relationship that we have with them and what sort of tools that they have. I will say this, the absolute goal that's been discussed with every partnership that we have is creating a single pane of glass view for the partner and for the vendor and creating the best automation possible. So in reality, some of it still is not automated. And one of the things, an interesting discussion point to have too is a lot of it goes back to the data. We had a discussion the other day where someone says, well, I want everything to be automated and I want to move everything through, and we weren't even sure they had the data right. And we sort of had to say, okay, let's take a step back. Let's start with your data, and let's figure out how valid it is, how clean it is, how reliable it is. Then let's talk about moving it through from an automated perspective. And we have clients that do things in different ways. We have some clients who go through an integration process at the beginning, or working with us now where they're tying everything in together. We have some clients who do part of it from an automated perspective and look at maybe a step two as a manual perspective, and look at step two as an automated perspective. It really depends on you as a vendor, where you are today, who the other partners are that you would like to work with, and what that big picture looks like. So I'm sorry, the reason I thought that's a really big picture question.
Yeah, and I think in the last couple of years that integrations and web services and APIs have come a long way, and so some of the big vendors that have historically had all the different components on this loop are just getting to a place where they have the ability to start integrating them all together. So, yes, in a lot of organizations it's still a very manual process, but things are moving very quickly to where it's not hard to have these systems talking to each other, given the budget and the investment and the time to make it work.
Well, I would definitely say the acceleration, Peter, you're right. The acceleration of this direction is exponential. It's not arithmetic anymore, right? It used to be we had a conversation with individuals about would they think about doing this. The conversations we're having now with our clients and our prospects are, how do we do this? And what sort of phases do we go through with this? And how do we make this work? Once again, it's very competitive out there, right? And vendors are looking at, are my programs a competitive advantage? How do my partners view me? How can I make life as easy for my partner as possible? How do I create, once again, that single pane of glass for my partner to engage them, motivate them, and get them selling for me? And so it's all tying together.
Yeah, great question. Let's see, next one. Do you have a list of best-in-class through partner marketing companies? The answer is absolutely yes. We've been working with a number of these organizations, and more than happy. We've got all the contact information for the people asking questions, so I will make sure to reach out to you and get you the list of the companies that we have worked with in the space and that we really recommend.
Yeah, we see this so much now. Very often we've been involved where we're sitting down with the vendor and we're looking at them scorecarding all of their needs and all of these certain areas and literally laying out what their game plan looks like for tying all of these pieces together. So we get an awful lot of exposure to vendors from that perspective.
And then let's see, we've got 2 more questions, and then I think we'll be at time. So one of the questions is how does one collect POS data, and what is the lag time in getting it? Stephen, I mean, I would tend to say that it varies a lot depending on the products that you're selling, depending on where that data needs to be collected, and something that, again, we could make introductions to to POS vendors who are probably more qualified to answer that. Do you have anything?
Well, I mean, the biggest question is, do you use a multi-tier channel, right? When disties are really what throw the wrench into the mix, and that's really where there's just huge value in outsourcing someone who can really clean all of that up. That's just a lot of work. So that would probably be the biggest qualifying question. And then after that, as you said, Peter, all the sort of things around how many SKUs do you have, how many partners do you have, what sort of tiers do you have, lots of in-depth questions on that as well.
And then let's see, last question: how are others tying TPMAs to deal reg?
Okay. So one of the things, the discussions that we're having with the TPMAs is how to move that directly into deal registration, right? And the question really becomes, this is where it all sort of gets tied in together. The TPMAs very much started with, okay, I can take all that data and maybe I'll move it back to your CRM system, right? Or I'll send it back to you and I'll start to close that loop. Then the question becomes, okay, how do we take it from there? How does it get into deal registration? Or do we take it directly from the TPMAs into deal registration? So those questions and discussions are going on right now between the TPMAs and the vendors, and we've been a part of several of those conversations. So that is a process, a really interesting process that's in its, I think it's in its evolutionary stages on this, right? And it's obviously can be very, very key.
Great, thanks. The last couple questions I saw were just surrounding recordings and the availability of the deck. Yes, absolutely. We will have a recording up of this. We will put the deck up online as well, and you will all get an email alerting you when that is available. So absolutely, we'll get that out to you. As I promised, I'll reach out to those that had asked for the list of POS vendors and TPMAs and get you some referrals there. And with that, that's really the wrap on our webinar. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Again, our email addresses are available here. If there's anything else that comes up, would love to further the conversation with you and talk a little bit more about the specifics of your situation. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for asking questions, and please reach out if there's anything else we can do for you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.